Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating stack of sources on realistic apocalypse preparedness.
Yeah.
Forget the Hollywood zombie stuff for a second. Our mission here is to kind of cut through the noise and give you a shortcut. A way to be genuinely well-informed on what could actually tangibly alter daily life.
Precisely. And what's striking, looking through this research, is how experts are increasingly prioritizing, well, human-caused risks over purely natural disasters.
Right. Why is that?
It seems to be because of their higher likelihood, and critically, their potential for these cascading failures across our global system. So they're just so interconnected now.
Cascading failures.
Yeah.
Like dominoes.
Exactly. Think about it. A single point of failure, maybe in the power grid or financial systems, and it can trigger a whole chain reaction. Supply chains, too.
Okay. And digging deeper into that, our sources highlight, well, everything from advanced AI systems. And it's not just like the Terminator scenario people imagine.
No, not really.
We're talking AI potentially leading to what they call a post-scarcity economy. A situation where human labor just isn't economically relevant anymore.
Or even, a future where humans are simply, well, unnecessary for its objectives. Not out of malice, the sources suggest, but just pure efficiency from the AI's perspective.
That really makes you reconsider our role, doesn't it?
It really does. And history, well, it gives us some pretty chilling examples of how fragile these systems can be.
Like what?
Well, consider the 1983 Soviet nuclear false alarm. A single faulty computer chip nearly triggered, global catastrophe.
Just a chip. Wow.
Yeah, it shows how easily a technical glitch could just unravel everything. Or imagine a really widespread cyber attack that could paralyze logistics.
Okay.
And leave most urban areas, according to some estimates, with only about 1 week's food supply.
Only a week. That's sobering.
It is.
And the sources don't stop there, right? They also bring up climate change.
Yes, and significantly, it's often identified not just as a direct threat itself, but as a threat multiplier.
Threat multiplier, meaning it makes other problems worse.
Exactly. It's projected to amplify existing vulnerabilities, potentially forcing massive human migration, escalating conflicts over resources, water, land.
Right, and stressing governments maybe to their breaking point.
Precisely. So the question really becomes, what actually happens when these critical systems buckle under the strain?
Okay, so regardless of the trigger pandemic, cyber attack, climate stuff, what are the common impacts, the things we'd actually face?
Yeah, and this is where preparedness really comes alive, I think, because it's about anticipating these common challenges.
Right.
When critical infrastructure collapses, when resources get scarce and social order starts to break down, that's when individual and community action becomes essential, not just, supplemental.
Okay, so we've sort of outlined these potential disruptions. That begs the question, how do our sources suggest we actually prepare? What does preparedness look like in this context?
Well, what's fascinating is how multifaceted it needs to be. It's definitely not just about stockpiling canned goods, though that has its place.
Sure.
It's more about building resilience, mental, physical, and social resilience for when those conventional systems just aren't there anymore.
Okay, so resilience.
Yeah.
What does that mean practically?
Well, our sources really emphasize practical skills becoming paramount, like really mastering multi-pronged water purification methods.
Multi-pronged, so like more than just a filter.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe boiling, chemical treatment, and filtering, depending on the situation, ensuring you have truly potable water. It's also about cultivating a repurposing mindset.
Repurposing mindset, like MacGyver.
Sort of. It means looking at every item, not just for its intended use, but how it could be adapted or, broken down to serve other critical needs.
Yeah.
Thinking creatively with what you have.
That makes sense. And what about, like, money? If systems collapse, does cash still matter?
That's a huge point. In a scenario where traditional money might lose its value, your personal trade crash.
Trade crash.
Yeah, meaning specialized practical skills. Think plumbing, farming, carpentry, maybe basic medical knowledge. Those can become your most important asset for bartering.
So a shift from a money economy to like a skills economy.
Pretty much. Your ability to do something useful becomes your currency.
Okay. And what about getting help if things are really bad?
Critically, our sources highlight that if you have a truly large-scale catastrophe, something covering most of a continent, let's say,
Yeah.
then significant external aid from governments or big organizations is likely precluded, at least for potentially a long time.
So you're basically on your own, or at least on your own locally.
Exactly. And that's why building hyper-local community resilience becomes so paramount. Things like neighborhood pods, mutual aid networks.
Neighborhood pods, like knowing your immediate neighbors and having a plan together.
Yes, precisely. Because trust, as one source really aptly put it, is built in drops and lost in buckets.
Built in drops, lost in buckets.
Those pre-existing local bonds, that trust, it becomes irreplaceable when things get tough.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you, the listener, as you reflect on this deep dive into realistic preparedness?
Yeah, what's the final thought?
Maybe consider this. Beyond the physical supplies, beyond the practical skills we talked about, what unexpected human element? Maybe radical self-reliance for some, or the strength of your community bonds for others, or just simply your adaptive mindset will prove most critical for navigating the profound uncertainties that our future might hold. Something to think about.